Rahubat everyone, we've got a caller already on the line. So let's go to the live caller. Greetings.
Greetings, Akin. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing my best. How are you? Who's calling? Where are you calling from? And what's your question, please?
Great to meet you, Saken. My name is Percy. I'm calling you from South Africa.
Greetings, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing my best.
That's all the best that one can do. All right. So what's your question for today?
Thank you. My question is, how is Yanoon feeling about the situation Dr. Malachi is facing?
Great question. Yanoon, basically, if it was down to him, he would have been out of here a long time ago, right? Because
Okay.
Yanoon sees that he sees that people are very slow in terms of not embracing the culture. People are still hesitant. People are still kind of like trying to serve two masters, being afraid of being and expressing Wu-Sabat. And yeah, if it was left down to him, he would have been out of here a long time ago. But obviously, Malachi, even though his skin suit is 80 plus years old, he keeps being pleading and holding on and asking for us to be given a chance. You see, because it's a great question you're asking, because people say things like, well, if he's such a great being, da 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 da, why is he incarcerated, or why is he not able to just leave? And
Yes,
when they
yes.
say that, they don't make the distinction. They don't distinguish between the Malachi, the physical being just like us, and Yanoon, who is really an Etherean being who can personify at will and leave at will. He's not really limited by the confines of this, people, places and things that we're subjected to, because we're kind of trapped here until we learn how to turn ourselves inside out and to leave. So we always say to people, Yanoon can leave anytime he wants. But then the physical body, the being that he's basically attached to, will not last, because that physical body is only really able to continue based on the sustenance that he receives by way of Yanoon, you see. So you ask a great question. Yanoon himself, he has very little patience for us that don't embrace and accept Wu-Sabat, because it's like, imagine you've got the best information and you're not even recognizing or applying it. So to him, it's kind of like, the whole quote of giving pearls to swine, or, do you know what I mean? Like, whereas Malachi, because he's had to learn from us in terms of being a physical being, he understands our struggles, our pains, and the fact that we have the two natures, agreeable and disagreeable. And so, he actually is the one that keeps fighting for us, and it's our job to fight to release him as our ultimate test, to show that we've listened, we're putting into action what he has taught us. So yeah, that's basically how Yanoon feels. And because they are together as one, it's like, even yourself, you have your physical body, but you also have your spiritual being, your etheric being, your soul being. So the physical body is the one that really, in our situation, the physical body is trapping the soul, and so the soul is always trying to escape as well. This is where, if you were like, the way the master explained it, and it made perfect sense, is that if you were driving you hear that urge to put your foot down a little bit, go a bit faster, go a bit faster. Or if you were like on a high building looking down, you know, you get that thing, something kind of tells you to jump, even though you know you don't want to. It's because the soul is always trying to rid itself of the bacteria that we call the body. But it's all about being balanced. So when you start to, you know, feed your spiritual being, then it's able to kind of like feel nourished, and you can then, you know, maintain a balance between the physical you and what people would term the spiritual you, or the etheric, or the real being, which is the soul. You see, does that help?
Oh, great. A lot. My second question should be, when you teach as Wu-Sabat, why is this so familiar, like where the Bible is talking about the rapture?
Yes.
And your teachings talking about the UFOs, like our ancestors are going to pick up some of us. So why is this so familiar?
Okay, it's so familiar because what we keep telling people is this is also a DNA doctrine. It's in your DNA, it's in your genetics. It's a remembering tool. The information is to trigger you or activate you so that when you get what we call a DNA explosion, it's like you start to remember who you are, really, who you really are. And then you start to connect back to like your ancestors, and it's almost like all this time you've been disconnected and not realizing that the beings that are connected to you, your ancestors and all the agreeable beings that are in your bloodline, they're right here with you all the time. It's just that by way of the spell and the way of religions, you were cut off from making that connection. And once you do, you start to remember, and it's everything is like, if you may have even traveled and visited other realms and dimensions and spoken with your ancestors, had experiences in the past that you may have dismissed because you weren't aware of Wu-Sabat. And then once you start to apply it, you start to connect the dots, and you find that you start to remember a lot of things, and you start to remember who you are. So everything starts to feel more familiar, because that's what it's called, familiar spirits. You see, the word family relates to beings or people you're familiar with. And it's not just necessarily based on the blood, because you can have blood relatives that are close to you, but you're not as close to them as a total stranger or someone that you share that connection in terms of, you know, Wu-Sabat, and how you relate to things, and they can relate to you as well. So you can find sometimes you can have real connection and have conversations with people on a deeper level that get where you're coming from, and they're not necessarily your families, but you're more familiar with them than your own family. So that's why it's very familiar. Also, another part is that you may have been here on average 9,000 times previously. So a lot of it will resonate, because you're going to start to remember these other past occurrences. Did you have another call?
100%, brother.
Yeah.
It's making a lot of sense what you are saying. Even your teachings every day. I follow your videos. They are very, very, very making sense a lot.
Yeah.
And freedom for the master teacher,
Absolutely.
Dr. Malachi.
And I want to make it clear that a lot of people, it's become like a cliche where everyone just says freedom for the master teacher. Free. Yes, your intentions and your thoughts help, your energy helps, but at the same time, it's also not just saying the words, but actually doing something to help and putting it into action. And that starts with you putting the knowledge that he's giving you into action. And then obviously there are other things you can do in terms of whether it's, giving a free will offering by way of donations, or, helping with the legal team, or getting involved with the stores, and the activities that go on in terms of, promotion, awareness. Then there's, so much we can do to help. So let's not just make that term become a cliche, like, yeah, freedom for not to York, but then that's it. We don't do much about it. I'm not directing it at you. I'm just talking to all of us in general that, do whatever you can
Yes, yes,
to
yes.
help. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question.
Yeah, sure.
Researchers and where do they get the information? Because to me, I'm saying information because I think it's information when it's inside this planet. Am I right?
You are right. Yes. So I
Yeah.
didn't hear the first
So,
part. The first part, I didn't hear what you of that question.
okay. I'm asking about the researchers or scientists.
Oh, okay.
Where do they get the information?
Yeah. Another great question. So, a lot of people will say things like that, like, where does the master get all this information from? And one of the things that he did was master the information on the planet. And so when you're saying researchers, the word re, as you know, is to do again, like redo something,
Yes, yes.
research, yeah?
Yeah.
And you can hear it. So
Yeah.
literally you're saying search again, research, search again. And a lot of times people were just accepting things on face value or based on beliefs. They never really took the time to check it out. And when you study, or you actually look at the books and read them and research them, you will find the information is right there all the time. It's literally in front of you. And people just were taught or put under a spell, or a spell of amnesia. We call it the spell of Kingu, or the spell of Leviathan, which was actually casted by witches to make you forget, or to not even like see something that's right in front of your face. So when researchers research, we know that as ontologists, as the original beings on the planet first, we kept a lot of records. There are many records that are written in stone tablets, on buildings like the pyramids, and in Sumeria, and many cultures that predate the monotheistic religions. You can go to like South America, as I said, the Mayans, the Zoroastrians, the what people call the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians, the even people, Africa like Igbo, or dealing with Yoruba or Hausa even. There are many cultures that existed, even Hindu. There are many cultures that predate monotheistic religions, which are literally only 6,000 years old. So you go to, that's another thing, a very good question. On the planet, right, if there's an event that takes place, let's say a meteorite hit the planet, the evidence will be left. Or if there was a flood, or there was a war, or anything that takes place on the planet where the actual land itself, like if you go to the Grand Canyon, for example, there were many things that people will just look at and go, oh, the Grand Canyon, but they don't think what caused it. And then when researchers start looking from an aerial view, okay, and looking at craters and looking at things, like you can see, oh, once there was a flood here, because you can see where like the streams have left or eroded the planet. Or you may be able to go to that spot and find certain minerals and certain things. So researchers, they just uncover. They don't discover anything because it's already there. They just uncover it and say they've discovered it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we know that if you go back and look at, the evidence that's around the world on the planet, it's like temples are still there. Like you have remnants of old buildings that were left incomplete or that were destroyed, and you can find this evidence. And that's what they do. They research, they take DNA, they do carbon dating, they do all kinds of tests with the technology that we have now. Hence, even like with the geoscanning, You know, how they were able to now use, you know, satellites and things like that to scan the planet and see what's underneath the planet without even having to dig, you see. And you can look at heat sensors that will give you a breakdown of the different types of elements and things that reside in a particular location. So we know that if you do the research, you will find the truth. So what they did was stop you from actually connecting backwards, but to just believe and look up and hope for somebody else to come and save you so you don't have to do anything. And a lot of people actually, unfortunately, they just accept that without thinking about it. But when we start to probe and ask questions like, you know, where is this place and who's coming and how are they coming and how are they traveling, and, you know, then you start to uncover that it doesn't actually make sense. And for some people, it's too much. Like, I asked a question to somebody today. I said, in religion, they teach you that if you, we don't say die because we know you can't actually, you know, destroy energy. But if you cross over or translate, they tell you that you're going to go into two places. One is either to heaven or one is to hell, right? But yet people have cemeteries where they have tombstones that they go to and spend money, you know, to put flowers down, clean the stone and all. And then I said to the person, well, if you're only going to go to either heaven or hell, that means you're no longer there at the graveyard or at the cemetery. So why do people go there every week or every month or every anniversary to go and talk to a stone if nobody's there? And this is I'm just using that as a basic example to show you that if you use your mind logically and think about things, either they're saying that there is no heaven or hell, or the people are still here, they're trapped here, or what is the purpose? Because we teach in our doctrine that not everybody makes it out of here. So there are disembodied beings that are trapped here that haven't been allowed to leave by way of the gates. But what I'm saying is, if you didn't question that and think to yourself, yeah, why am I going to the cemetery and going to the tombstone if the person is in hell or in heaven? Why am I doing that? You see, these are the types of things that with Wu-Sabat, you start to use your nine mind and you think, as they say, outside the box. I hope that helps.
Helps a lot, brother. Helps a lot. I have the last question.
Sure, go ahead.
The
Since
last
nobody else is
question
calling at the moment, it's fine.
is about God.
Oh, we
The
got a queue. We got a queue. All right, this is
I'm
definitely
talking about God. I'm talking about. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I'm just saying there is a queue, so this will be your last question.
Okay. Yes, my last question. It's about God. When I'm saying God, I'm talking about the Bible, where it says God created this and this, heaven and earth. What? Is there a God, second? Is there something called God?
Right. Again, this question we get asked so many times, to the point where the master wrote a book called Is There God? Or Who is God? Or What is God? And the answer is yes to some people and no to others, meaning that it all depends on what you know and what you're calling God. Because if you say God in the way that the Bible describes God, it describes a person, right? That is very limited, very limited, because that person grieves, that person, you know, has regrets, that person has, you know, attributes of a person. You know, they walk, they talk, they destroy things, they get angry. And I'm just trying to, I'll give you some quotes, right? For those, both quotes from the Bible and the Quran from our book, Fast Track Your Spiritual and Conscious Journey. On page 85, right, I've actually listed this. Genesis 19:13, right? I'm not going to read it, but in your own time, do some research. It tells you that God has a face. In Exodus 33:11, it also tells you that the Lord has a face. In Exodus 31:18, it tells you the Lord has a finger. In Psalms 10:12, it tells you the Lord has hands. In Psalms 18:8, it tells you that the Lord has a nose. In Psalms 18:9, the verse after, it tells you that the Lord has feet. In Psalms 33:18, the Lord has eyes. In Genesis, he's walking and talking. In the Quran as well, right, it tells you that Quran 7143, that Moses saw Allah. In Quran 1137, Allah has hands and eyes. In Quran 3671, Allah has hands. Also, Quran 3875, Allah has hands. Quran 3956, Allah has a side. Quran 42:11, Allah is a thing. And then 43:84, Allah dwells in the sky and on earth. Allah has a face. So all of these quote, and even if you go into Quran 2:255, it tells you that he is a man, that he is male. Now, people will say, obviously, you're reading English or reading the Arabic as a translation. But when you go into the actual language, because when you show people that say, okay, you're saying God is this mystical person, but yet here are quotes from the same book telling you that he has attributes of a man, right? They will say, they'll start making excuses like, oh, maybe it's a mystical finger, or maybe it's a mystical nose. No, in the language, it actually tells you you're talking about body parts. And the master teacher put out a book called The Body Parts of God, where he literally, you see his face, you see his side, you know, it goes all the way through showing you every part of God. I'm saying that to say that when you look at the word the letters G-O-D, if you were a Mason, that means something different to you, because that would be dealing with Goma, Oz, and Dabar, which also are attributes of a physical being, which is wisdom, strength, and beauty. Now, when you start to look at the language and go, okay, Hebrew, what's the word for God? Elohim, which means these beings, multiple or plural. And the same, you can do that with all these books. So God can mean different things to different people. And then they give you a fictitious thing where they say he's in heaven. And to be inside heaven means that he's smaller than heaven. And to be sitting inside a throne means that the throne is bigger than him. And to be, some will say Jesus is God, for example. But then Jesus was praying to God in times of need, saying, even in the Lord's, or the Lord's Prayer, where he said, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy, you know, all that. He's saying my Father, he's saying my Father, or our, no, actually he says our Father. So there are many, many situations where you can see that the misinterpretation is what's throwing people off. When we say you are God, because the Bible also tells you that in Psalms 82:6, you know, John 10:34, Exodus 7:1, Moses was made a God. You see, this is showing you that there are different types of God. In the in Genesis 11, chapter 11, it tells you that God came down to see what was going on in the, you know, the situation with the Tower of Babel. So these gods are literally extraterrestrial beings in humanoid form that walk, talk, destroy things. And this is where, when a group of them is translated as the Elohim, the Anunnaki, the Anutu, you know, Yahweh, which is Yah, agreeable, and Way, disagreeable. You got seraphim and cherubim. Seraphim is good, the cherubims are bad. That's telling you about they both have natures of agreeable and disagreeable, just like us, you see. So the whole topic of, is there a God? There are many gods, and to different cultures they will tell you the Egyptians had many gods: Ra, Osiris, Atun, Amun. These are Egyptian gods, plural. So Even in the Greek, when you're talking about angelos, this is the angels, right? And even when you start to break the word God in the different languages, you're going to get jinn winds. You're going to get, depending on what culture you're coming from, you're going to hear that they're describing what we've been teaching and telling people are extraterrestrials that have come here. They have certain abilities, certain power. Even in Genesis 6:4, they tell you about the Nephilims who nafala, they fell down, they came down to earth. Anunnaki, those are Anu sent to Ki, the planet Ki, or Earth, Ard, which became Earth in groups of 50. So yeah, when you say, is there a God? Yes. But what type of God? You see? And God to who? Because to be a God is just to be in control and to be in control over some other beings. You see? So when you say the Most High, you're describing Anu, who was the highest deity in the Sumerian, you know, doctrine. And in ancient Egypt, it's the same. Many gods. Ra, Re, as we say, or Reye. You see, so yeah, the gods we refer to are our ancestors who we are in the image and likeness of. And then you look at every race on the planet and the image they give you of who they call God is going to be in their likeness. But when you say image and likeness, likeness is dealing with the nature of that being, how they behave. Obviously, the image is going to relate to how you imagine, because you look at the word imagination, the first part of that is image. So Michelangelo, they painted in the 16th chapel, they painted a picture of God looking like a Caucasian with a white beard and everything. And then Jesus, his son, is going to look like him because you're dealing with DNA. But when you look at other races, whether it's the Chinese, the Hindus, they all have God in their image and likeness. So we have God in our image and our likeness, known as Pa Nabab Yanoon or Ptah. And you see the image behind me. And that's the reality, that those are our gods, because they are the ones that seeded this planet first. And your mother and father, right? You know they exist because you came from them and your mother grew you in her womb. So she can confirm that she created you, right? But people will say, no, I was created by God. And you say, where is God? And they can't give you the evidence or prove that God exists. But you say, but your mother actually was the one that grew you in her stomach and brought you forth. So your mother is really your first God. And if you can confirm your mother exists and your father exists, then you can confirm their mother and father existed. And then it goes on in the chain all the way back to the first DNA on the planet, which came from outside the planet by way of Ntharu, our ancestors. You see, and so the question of, who is God or what is God is so broad depending on who you're speaking to. And yeah, if you speak to us, we tell you, yes, you are God. And you're God linked to your ancestors who go all the way back to the first ones that we refer to as the overseers or the Ntharu. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
You're
It's
welcome.
helping. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we've got a queue, so I'm going to take some more questions. And yeah, hope to speak to you again sometime soon. Okay, next question. Rahubat, caller, what's your name and where you calling from and what's your question,
Hello.
please? To what, Rahubat?
Hello.
I can hear you. How are you? Go
I'm
ahead.
fine. Rahul Bat, again.
Rahubat. Yeah, what's your name?
It's
Where you
nice
calling
talking to
from?
you again. My name is Femi from Oshawa, Canada.
Okay, Femin, nice to meet you again. Go ahead.
Um, Actually, I have three questions. I know like there's a queue, but
Yeah.
I would like to start from like because you kind of like touched on it a little bit. Since I
Okay.
actually found this whole like Wu-Sabat and like the old teachings of like the master teacher, I've been trying to like talk to my friends and my family members, like trying to introduce them to it and just like spread the word.
Right.
But most times, I just find that like people tend to refer to the teachings and the master teacher like it's an occult. So I don't know if that's like something you can help me clarify. So when people
Definitely.
like make statements like that, I can like, find a better way to respond or like answer them or even show them the video so
Sure.
they can see it for themselves. Is this more like an occultic teaching, or is it more like a religion?
Okay. So when people say that, they have been programmed with what they consider an occult, right? And if you break it down or ask them to break down what is that? What is an occult? What do they say to you?
More like a secret society.
Right. Okay. Think about it. Secret society. So if you are a secret society, so there's a society that keeps secrets. That's what you're
Right.
basically saying. How is that a bad thing? Because you go to even, you know, companies, commercial companies, they keep secrets because they have a product or a service that they don't want anybody to know how they invented it or built it. I'm just saying that to show you how by just the line of questioning you can establish and break down what people are being programmed with, right? We are
Right.
a culture, right? The first part of the word culture, or when you're cultivating your own way of life or your own culture, someone who looks at that and says, no, you should be following what I'm telling you or what I say, they're going to say to you, you're a cult, right? And
Right.
by when they say occult, they're saying that you're teaching information or you've got information that is different from what they say is mainstream. Now, as a culture, only certain people on the planet have a real rich culture. So we are a culture. Wu-Sabat is a culture that predates everyone on the planet. And they stole and borrowed parts of our culture and made it into things that suit them. So when you start to ask people, okay, what do you listen to, what do you follow? There is nothing more occult than when you start to really study religion and its origin, because they have, even within the confines of their scriptures, things where you're saying sacrificing animals, spill blood, and appease these beings with burnt offerings or burnt sacrifices, or even to the point where you're tempted, you know, as in the Isaac story, that you're tempted to try and sacrifice your child. Read the whole of Leviticus and you see nothing but sacrifices. So all I'm saying is that when you start to look at the origins of these religions, they tie back to something known as Wicca or the Wiccan religion. And look at that and study that, and you see where you're dealing with necromancy, which is, you know, the eating of flesh and the blood sacrifices, which I've already mentioned. When you look at African spirituality, which has become another cliche today, because people just say African spirituality, but then you say, okay, Africa is a big place. You have many, many tribes, and some of them have been infiltrated or have been given a different way of life, which is not theirs originally. You see, so you would have to say, okay, let's deal with the facts. Let's deal with researching and getting to the information that is evidence based, not by beliefs or someone says this is what you should do and you've accepted it without questioning it, without researching it. And when you start to, you find out the facts, and you find out that we just teach nothing but truth, which is synonymous with facts. And facts are uncovered. Like, if you find out something is true, it's true. It doesn't matter what race, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what you believe or what you accept. The facts are the facts. They're undeniable. So when you start to deal with Wu-Sabat, that's why we put ourselves in a position of, okay, scrutinize it, ask us, research it, check it out for yourself. And what you will find is that it's truth, and then it will resonate with your being. So people that don't want to actually do any work and they just want to accept and believe something without any evidence or without researching it are going to look at you and say, because you're not doing what we do, which we've been doing for thousands of years without even questioning it, they're going to try and make you look like you're doing the wrong thing. But if you ask them, can we ask you some questions? Let's put you on the stand and scrutinize what you teach and what you believe and why you do it and where did it originate, then you make up your mind clearly for yourself. So yeah, Wu-Sabat just teaches actual facts, right knowledge, right wisdom, which leads you to the right understanding, and then you can start reasoning properly with sound right reasoning for yourself. And when it makes sense, it makes sense. You know, no one can tell you anything if you can confirm it for yourself. Beliefs are just based on things you don't know, or that things you haven't researched, or that you cannot prove. So you have to make the choice for yourself. Did that help?
For sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's something like I can definitely like explain to them, and it also helps me understand for myself as well. It's more of
Sure.
like a way of life, like a culture.
That's right.
So like, which actually leads to like my second question, based on like what's about like cultures and like how we practice. Is it like when someone dies, like is it advisable to like bury them in like a casket, or have
No.
them like cremated? The only reason why I'm asking is because I'm Nigerian,
Yeah.
and we believe in reincarnation. We have names like Babatunde or Iyabo, which means like father has returned or mother has
Yeah.
returned. Like it's
Exactly.
something our culture really holds. But
Yeah.
like my real question is like, is reincarnation like a trap, or are we supposed to just come here and not return back here and just go somewhere else?
Okay, so I picked up two questions from what you've said. The first one, as you know, scientifically proven, you cannot destroy energy, right?
Right.
Energy is transmuted, transformed, trapped, channeled, etc. And so when you say die, we know that we don't die in the sense of what people are calling death, because like you're composed of energy, your physical being, your spiritual being, your soul being, your mental being, your etheric being, your what we call exoplasmatic being. There are many components to making you up, and so parts of them return back to the elements. So your physical body, if buried, will decompose and go back to the soil or go back to the ground. This is where they get the whole dust from the ground thing, right? But
Right.
when you're in your environment and in your own culture practices, then you will carry out certain rituals and things to protect you. So today, because you're not in control of the process, and there's a lot of what they call organ harvesting, there's a lot of as I was mentioning before, what you call cannibalism, necromancy. All of these things mean that your physical body is not safe, and it will not decompose quickly if you put it in the ground and put it in a casket and put it in the ground, and then put it on underneath the ground, put cement and everything and keep it there. The essence is still trapped within your physical body until it completely decomposes. So we cremate at the moment, where we
Okay.
know that your complete essence is going to go back to nature. This is why, as a culture, even as you mentioned Yoruba, it's about the ancestors and you returning to that energy source where you came from. And when you cremate, then your essence goes back to nature. And this is what's known as animist. Yeah, because as animists, we know that we come from nature, we return to nature, we don't die, we continue to exist in other dimensions and realms. And like I mentioned at the beginning, some beings have reincarnated up to 9,000 times. Initially, we didn't used to do that. We used to come here, complete our purpose, and go back. But because of the fact of us falling from grace in terms of not remembering who and what we are, we've been trapped in the things we do, how we live our lives, to the point where we don't learn the spiritual practices and the things we need to do so that we can elevate and go and don't come back. And that's the goal of Wu-Sabat, to teach you these things, how you can actually strengthen your spiritual, your soul, your etheric being, the real parts of you that will propel you or take you higher to the other realms, so that you can make it and continue up to being a part of what we call pa'ut, or the all. You see, that's the journey. So yeah, that's to answer those two questions. That yeah, we cremate, and secondly, you don't have to reincarnate if you make the grade. You only keep coming back if you have things to learn and still have lessons to learn, or desires that you have to burn out in this lower realm so that you can move on to the higher realms. I hope that helps.
For sure. Yes, sir. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
You're
I have one
welcome.
more question, but I know there's a queue, so I'll save it.
No, don't, you can ask it, the last one.
Okay. Actually, you did kind of answer it in another video where someone called and asked about like if the Earth is like flat or like we live on a globe.
Yeah.
But so you've answered part of the question. Like what I'm trying to understand is if there's an actual firmament above
Yeah.
us, because you said like it's not necessarily flat.
Yeah.
It's more like a peanut shape.
Yeah.
But like, is there like a firmament still above that peanut shape?
Yes, there is a firmament. It's just that what people are describing it as is not what it is. When you're reading in Genesis, it's talking about the different layers, right? So what they're calling the firmament, like, is the different layers of the sky. But with when we say the sky or the clouds or the heavens, you have different planes or layers to it. Like you have the spheres, right? You know, the stratosphere, the ionosphere, these spheres that are like layers that in order to break and come out of this atmosphere, you need to be able to break through these spheres. And the firmament is the same, because when you're on an aeroplane, right? If you ever flown on an aeroplane, as you're in the sky, as you know, you're obviously lifting up, you see that you go past a layer of clouds. And then the plane, if you look down, you're going to see clouds. And you look up, you see other clouds. So you can keep going up in layers depending on the altitude that the plane will go at and fly at. So what I'm saying is that there are layers of vibrations, or what we call atmospheres, around the planet as well. And the rainbow also shows you that, because when you see a rainbow, it's a curvature, right? You see the different spheres or the different colors that go all the way to what people call purple or ultraviolet. The ultraviolet is the last one before you break that barrier to continue. And people will say, if you study light, right? You put light through a prism, right? You put white light through a prism and you see how it separates into, well, black and white are not really colors, because all colors combined are black, yeah, and the absence of that is white. But you put it through a prism and you see these different colors. Now that prism that is in the sky is an actual craft, right? This craft is spoken about in the books of Revelation, called the Crystal City. Not Nibiru, but the Crystal City, which in the Bible, when that covenant was being made with Noah after the so-called flood, right? It was like, we will no longer destroy the earth by water, but by fire. That fire is really relating to the sun, and the sun has heat or energy, right? And that crystal city has been placed there as a reminder. Now, when we say placed there, when we say there are crafts waiting in certain altitudes or certain places known as the Lagrange points, where they cannot be detected, and some of them are able to camouflage themselves. So that crystal city is how this light is going through or reflecting it to give you this curvature that people are calling, you know, the rainbow. And even though they will tell you that it's like light being the fractals of light, or when light is dispersed, because when you look at light, when you really study light, you're looking at photons that are, you know, separated and vibrating. That's why even if you turn on your light bulb at home, you would look at the specks, the little speck that you see in the light. So yeah, it's dealing with vibration and energy. So to go back to your original question, there are parts of the earth that are flat, but not the entire earth. And there is it's more like it's like an oblong, not even an oblong, because the oblong is more like a square. It's more like a, like I said, like a peanut, kind of that kind of shape. So it's not completely, you know, symmetrical in terms of its circle, but there are different spheres and different atmospheres also surrounding it. And again, think about it. If it's flat, I always ask, what's at the bottom of what you're calling flat? Is it
Right.
just floating in air, or is it resting on top of something? I see all the diagrams with the flat earth people, and I've studied them, and no one who is, in my view, based on the teachings of the master teacher, for example, who is the smartest man on the planet, has never told us that the earth is flat. However, if he always updates information, if he ever comes back around and teaches us that and says that, then obviously we will go with, you know what I mean? But the thing is, whenever he teaches something, he will break it down to the point where you will go, you get that aha moment. You will know, like, okay. And until then, based on my research, my studies, other smart people dealing with satellites, evidence that's been produced, etc., is like the asteroid belt. There's so much that, you know what I mean, just basically points to the facts that the Earth is not flat in the way they try to portray it. But I'll let you,
Right.
I'll let you
Like
go.
if the planet is flat, that means the moon and the sun should technically be flat as well. From
Yeah,
what we're seeing.
and another question I ask religious people, I mean, flat earth people that are religious, if you ask them, do they believe in God or Allah or something, most of them say yes. But then when you say, where is God then? Or where is he? Like, they say he's in heaven. And then you say, well, is heaven, where's heaven? It's not on earth, is it? So there's so much holes to the whole thing. Like, that doesn't make sense. But again, it's distractions where, remember, in olden times, people were saying that, you know, the earth was flat, and now it's not. And now they're going back to it. But we've got another call, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But thanks for your call. Greetings, caller Rahubat. What's your name, where you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Yes, Second Sakam Reye, Rahubat, Mazamal,
Rahubat.
Teray. Yeah, so I'm just calling in now, yeah. Been tuned in for like over a year now.
Okay.
Yeah?
Wow, where?
Slowly, just trying to deprogram my mind.
To what?
But I just wanted to phone in and ask you personally.
To what?
I heard you mention something about serving two gods, yeah, for lack of better terms, innit?
Two masters, yeah.
Yeah, two masters. That's what you said. So, you know, as melanin dominant, you coming up in England. I'm from Birmingham.
Yeah.
I was kind of programmed towards the road side of things. You get me?
I get you. Yeah.
When I come into and I heard about this and I seen your face on the TV talking what you was talking, the first thing I seen was you about the extraterrestrials and the bees and whatnot, and I was like, yo. Then I just went down a rabbit hole, and it's like something in me was just like, yo, this guy is talking some things. You get me?
Yeah.
So I started to speak certain things to my brethren and whatnot, and they're literally looking in my face and saying, bro, I think that you've gone crazy, you know. Like,
yeah.
Like, you get me?
Yeah.
I'm this, yo, I think that you've got schizophrenia, I think this and that, and
yeah.
You get me? I'm telling him, yo, listen, we actually come from extraterrestrials and whatnot, and you know, people are looking at me crazy. So my question is, what's the best way to balance this thing out? Cause I really want to live righteous, you know, as that's my nature. I'm a righteous as nature. You get me? But you know, I'm here living in the physical. So,
yeah. You hit the nail on the head with what you said about balance. It is about balance until you're in a position where, you know, like we ain't gonna front. Like, this is part of the reason why our land was stolen, because really until you have your own like land, your own farm, your own, like what we had, like your sovereign nation, you're still interfacing with other sovereign nations, but it is really about you taking that control, because anything you can say that, you know, like going back to the serving two masters thing, anything you can say that you get from the master as in the slave master, you can create and do for yourself. But it's just that you need to work with the right people, the right mindset and mentality. Because if someone's going to say you're crazy, right, using that word, right, and then you look at what they do and what they accept and what they believe and what they follow, and you're like, you really got the cheek to say I'm crazy when, you know what I mean, when you really look at it. But that's why you have to be amongst people who are vibrating on the same resonance, and they know that, what, like you say, you feel it, you know it. Like when someone, when you know something, right, that's why the first part of the word knowledge is to know.
Is no,
You have
yeah,
to
but
know,
that's
like,
the problem though. Second, I know, like, you see how we're talking about the physical now. I know physically what I'm doing
yeah,
in the physical is not. I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do this, but I
yeah.
need to because I'm living in the physical. And if I decide to just turn and just, you get me?
Yeah, but
You just,
we're not. What I'm saying is, you can balance everything, and you just got to be around like-minded people so you can all support each other. Because when you're a one-man lone ranger, you know what I mean. It's very, it's gonna be hard for you, man. That's why we
yeah,
have to come together and work in communities and like help each other and do for self and build. That's really that. I mean, it's not rocket science. You can go up to Stamford Hill and go up to certain parts of, you know what I mean, England, and you know, you have different communities coexisting, living and practicing their culture. You know what I mean? So it's something that is doable, and it's about balance, as you said. Like at the end of the day, because you know, like you can't go to the extremes where, you know, you have people that go to the extreme when they saying, come and do what we do, believe us, and if you're not part of us and you're not part of our club, then you're a heathen, you're infidel, you know, you're going to hell, you're all these names just because you don't choose to follow and do as they do. Whereas we say Wu-Sabat for everyone. Anyone who puts it to practice will notice the benefits. But yeah, honestly, I hear where you're coming from, and it's not an easy road. And you have to be true to yourself. But the thing is, you
yeah,
have ancestors that will help you and work with you once you start to
yeah.
take
The
that.
ancestors.
Yeah, yeah. You start to
I
take
know,
that.
I know that you're kind of coming from where man's coming from, same way. You get me? I, like
Yeah,
without even, I don't know who you are personally, but seeing you on the TV,
yeah.
you're very relatable. You get me? And that's more why I think I gravitated to what you were saying.
Tour.
So, like, how did you find it? Obviously, not to get too personal, but
Yeah,
how
no, I
did you
hear you.
find
I
it?
hear exactly where you're coming from, and that's the reality. Is real. Like, yeah, I walked through that same. You know, what I mean, I can relate to people because I walked that path myself. You understand? So, like you say, without going into too much details, but you know, it came to a point where, like you, I knew, I always felt that inner being, that inner calling, like something weren't right. I just didn't like the way things were. And it starts from you when you go, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. And then as you change, you drop certain things, you start to see the benefits, and then you know, you keep going. And nothing that's worth anything is gonna be easy. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm sure people can see, sometimes I'm tired, but like the passion for Wu-Sabat, it's like you either have something you're really passionate about that you're gonna, you know what I mean, go in all for. And when you do that, you start to see the benefits, and then you realize that, you know what, it's really no turning back. And especially when you've come from lies of religion and like just lies over and over again about suppressing who you really are, your powers, and you know, you have certain elites and certain people that just don't want the masses to know the truth. And you know, the truth will make you free, or they say set you free, but no one ain't gonna set you free but yourself. So you make yourself free by your actions and changing your mindset. And everyone will say that and agree, and not you know, they're unanimous. The best thinkers in the world are unanimous when they say anything you put in your mind is achievable and you can make it happen. So you have to start there. Know that the mind, your mind is very powerful. You just have to think it, and you can manifest it with the right action. So I will say to you, yeah, stay close, keep studying, come closer.
Yeah,
I say it all
thank
the
you for that.
time.
That helped. That helped a lot. I got two more questions though quickly, and I'll let
Okay.
somebody else call in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quickly. So the first one, I know that there is a big. Like, all right, cool. What is the difference between us and Ntharu? Like,
All right. Excellent question. There is no difference apart from the fact that if you look at it this way, yeah, you look at your child or your baby, right?
yeah.
If you have a child or a baby, right? And the question, if you ask, what's the difference between my baby, whether it's a boy or a girl, what's the difference between that boy baby and you? What would you say?
Yeah. I kind of get where you're coming from, you know.
They're exactly
Yeah,
you, but just on a lower level because they're still learning, right? They're learning
yeah.
like they can't walk on their own, right? They're crawling, but they're gonna grow and they're gonna be able to stand up. They're gonna be able to talk. They're gonna basically grow into being you as they get older. So when you look at the Ntharu, they're like they've just grown to a point where they've mastered and conquered all the levels below. So we
All
said
right.
we said
Yeah.
9 levels,
Why?
yeah.
Why then are we the lower ones?
Because we actually, well, when you say lower, we are here to learn. Just like I said, like if your baby was born, your baby is not
Okay.
able to fend for itself. It can't feed itself. It relies on the mother initially, like to breastfeed, to give that baby the nutrients and everything the baby needs to nurture. And that's the first God, your mother, because she makes sure that, you know, she keeps you. But obviously, some situations you have to get powdered milk and get, you know what I mean, milk that is not from the breast. But eventually, you become your mother or your father. And the Ntharu have just learned to master all the planes from, you know, the physical plane, the spiritual plane, the soul plane, the mental plane, all the way past the 9 ether to the highest level where you master how you don't need this physical body and you can actually
Yeah.
come back and go at will. So the Ntharu are just us, or we are them as babies. And our journey, if we are able to listen and follow the guidance and the teachings and the instructions, then we can elevate to being like them. And it's like it's work at the end of the day. But if you want it, you'll make it happen, or else you just keep repeating and repeating until you burn out your chances, which is, you know, you get 24,000 chances. And if you burn
And
them all
yeah.
out, then you just basically not able to keep like existing on higher planes or higher levels. You just basically become energy that is on the at a particular levels. Like you don't have no more chances to be able to go and experience other existences. If English is hard sometimes to try and explain what I'm saying, but like,
Yeah, I get what you mean, you know,
yeah,
but you see, the problem that I have with overstanding that, what you just said, is that, cool, we're made up of spirit and soul. Now, I'm aware that animals also have spirit.
yeah,
So, when you say we get trapped here, obviously, our physical bodies, it depends on how you get rid of them when they, you know, burn out. But the best thing that I can say to make you understand what I'm trying to say, yeah, is, all right, cool. So, could my spirit get reincarnated into another animal? Does that make sense?
yeah. Spirits are they can be recycled, but the thing is that you recycle things based on the composition of, like, for example, you can't you wouldn't come through a bloodline that's not related to you or your familiar spirits, as we would refer to it. So it's
So,
like,
so this is my spirit that's doing that, not my soul.
yeah, now your soul, this is the point. That's the real essence that will take you to the higher levels of ether, where you become a pure etheric being or an Etherian, which is your spirit helps your soul to go to a certain level, like a distance, and then your spirit continues on. I'm sorry, your spirit helps your soul to get to a level, and then your soul continues to propel and go to the higher etheric realms, right? When I say if you've lost all your chances, you dissipate, which basically means that where you have conscious to be able to like come back and experience another lifetime and go through things and then move on to like another higher realm to experience an existence, you won't have that ability no more. It'll be like you will just become energy that is, I can't think of a better word than dissipate, like where you don't have no
Yeah,
more.
now I understand.
You understand, yeah?
What you're trying to say.
Yeah. But if you make it,
Does
then
that
you
mean
go all
that
the way.
Partner Bab Yanoon done that as well then? So did
Absolutely.
he have,
Yeah.
would he, yeah.
Yeah, he's part of what we call the overseers. He is one of the overseers, and what he has done is reincarnated here, and he was selected by the forces of nature amongst those circles of Ntharu as one of those 24 elders that is spoken about to come here in this new cycle to renew it and to wake people up from the spell and to teach them how to be supreme beings and to elevate to go back to Pa'od and be those like himself and be those types of beings. You follow?
So he had to go through all of that,
Yeah.
what we've gone through on Earth to raise his vibration, and he's lowering his vibration to raise us up.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And only one that can do that. That's why he is known as a 33 over 720 degrees, right? Meaning 360 degrees of the physical, as well as 360 degrees of what people call the spiritual. Like that's a spiritual master as well as a master of heaven and earth, because that's what you're looking at when you're saying earth. You're really dealing with the physical. When you're saying heaven, you're dealing with the spiritual. As above, so below. You see, there's duality. You know, when you look at a pyramid, you're really seeing a diamond, right? One half is, let's say, it's underground, and the other one is above. And a diamond is like, it goes through a lot to become a diamond, and that's where you have to go through these works, where you're perfecting yourself and learning to like turn yourself inside out. And not everyone wants to elevate. Like, if you think about people on the planet, if you just look at the educational system, you might have like what you call nursery or kindergarten, and then you go from there to primary school, to secondary school, and some people after secondary school, that's it. They want to go and work and get a job or whatever. Some then go into college, to university, and then from university they might do higher degrees, you know, first degree, master's degree, PhDs, and become professors. It's up to you in terms of the level of attainment. And I'm talking about when you're dealing with what you're calling life, the cycles of life, not just like getting the educational kind of like, I don't know, like academic system to get a job and all of that, where you don't really learn about these higher mysteries or higher degrees that deal with your life, both the physical and the spiritual. You follow? Yeah. All right. I have so many questions to get through today. So
no worries, again. I'll let you go.
All
Thank
right.
you for all of the answers, man. Wadi.
Wadu Zama. Okay. Have we got someone else? All right. Let me get through the chat because no one in the chat has had their question answered yet. All right. The first person's going to be life is a blessing. But before we do, I just want to stop and ask you, please help us by subscribing, liking, sharing, right? Something as simple as that actually helps us, because you know these things are based on the algorithm, you know. So please, if you haven't liked, share, subscribed, do so. All right. Right. First question: life is a blessing. Is male circumcision really necessary, and what is it? And what is really love? Okay. Male circumcision is really not necessary. It's a religious practice by way of Abrahamic religions, right? And the reason for it was because these entities that people are calling deities, we've broken down that some of these are beings that like human flesh, and their whole purpose is to farm food, right? And take it for food back to where they're from, and they look at this planet like shopping. Like you go to the supermarket and there is meat, right? All forms, right? Whether it's cows, chickens, goats, turkeys, name it. Humans farm these animals to eat, and different people prefer different types of meat, pork, pigs, etc., right? And white meat, red meat. Some of these extraterrestrials, they also feed in the same way, but they like certain type of seasoned meat. And I know some people might find this to be scary, but just think about chickens and animals that we do the same too. Where's the moral grounds there when you say thou shalt not kill in the Bible, and then it doesn't say what, it doesn't specifically say thou shalt not kill X, Y, Z. It just says thou shalt not kill. So what I'm basically saying is that the circumcision was another strategy to produce more children, because it's very sensitive when you take off the foreskin, which means that ejaculations happen much more quickly. And that's what was the whole, because if you go back to the Bible, there's a circumcision ritual that is passed down by way of Abrahamic religions, you see. So it's not really necessary, but obviously in terms of medical conditions and the cleansing and hygiene and all these other things that relate to when the foreskin is not removed, you need to know how to be able to be, able to be cleansed and, be hygienic and stuff like that. So now when you say what is really love, excellent question. Like everything else, things get, if you haven't noticed already, but you should know, because they tell you in these religious books that the devil will make evil fair seeming, to the point where the confusion is why people don't know what's right from wrong, or what is good and bad, or what is love and so forth, right? Because they've desecrated the word love. And phonetically, if you spell it backwards, because making things fair seeming is to make you think something is going one way, but it's actually the opposite, or bad when it's good, or good when it's bad. And that creates confusion. If you spell love backwards, E-V-O-L, you hear evil phonetically. You might not see it, but the tone and the vibration and the frequency is the same as if you had the I, because the vowels A-E-I-O-U are replaceable in many words that have come from Semitic or Shemitic tongues. All right, so why do I say that? Because for the sake of love, people will do all kinds of crazy things. And love has been turned into more lust, right? Because people will say, I love you because, there's always a because, or like, it's a selfish type of love. There's different types of love, right? The one that is true love is the ashuk, or divine love, unconditional love. The type of love that you feel that is unconditional. Like, I'm trying to put it into words, like the way you may have for your child or someone or something very innocent. So it's not based on any conditions. I love you because you're beautiful. I love you because you cook for me. I love you because you smile. There's always a turning point where it becomes a selfish. It's because of what you're getting from the person. And this goes all the way into the Valentine's Day and all of that. We did a video already on Valentine's Day and the origins of that. And in your mind, you've got these diagrams of what you call a heart, a red heart, when a heart doesn't even look like that. But true love is really care. Care, that's what the master taught us. If you listen to a recording called Learn to Care, right? It's probably on YouTube. He's teaching you about true love, which is when you care, when you really care about anything, people, animals, trees, the earth, you have like it's not based on a condition. It's like you don't wait till somebody in your family gets an illness and then all of a sudden you care about that illness. But up until that point, other people, and if it wasn't close to home, it didn't matter to you. You see, so when you really truly care, you care about the conditions of the world, you care about everyone and everything, and you come from that unconditional love to try and help and solve problems. All right, so that's that question for you. Life is a blessing. Okay, let's have the voice note and then we'll carry on.
Rahubat second, Rahubat Muisa,
Rahubat.
Anuki Terry Jamal, Tehuti Akenreye from Zambia. So just a quick question. I just wanted to hear from your experience, like what would be the reason why people still cling on to beliefs, religious beliefs, even when you present them with actual facts? I've actually had instances where having conversations with different people, you even show them the evidence from their very own scripture, but they still cling on to that. What could be the reason based on your experience? Maybe you could just share a few experiences. Then my other part is regarding there's some time back you recommended watching the Holy Grail. I did watch it, and I had a question particularly regarding on the part of Isaac Newton. Was it the literal apple or there's some hidden message there? I'm still doing my research on that, and I maybe want if you could explore a bit on that.
Okay. Tua. Okay, the first one was regarding why people hold on to beliefs. Okay, the first one, the real honest one, is fear. They're afraid. People are afraid of change. And if they've been doing something over and over and over again for a long time, it's like they've convinced themselves that it's true, even if it's not true. And so when you come with something different, the first thing is they're scared. They're scared to let it go because it's almost like, imagine you've convinced yourself that you're going to heaven. There's a place called heaven where you're going to live and be happy and all your sins are forgiven and everything's cushy, and you've got yourself believing this for years. And then somebody comes along and tells you that, let's actually analyze it. It's not real, it's not true. So people are afraid because you have to have something to replace it with. But we do. So we don't just like shatter someone's world. We walk them through it so that they will realize that they've been lied to all their life. And now Wu-Sabat is here to give them the truth and replace it. And so that's number one. People are afraid. People is cognitive dissonance, where even though something makes sense, they teach you things like ignorance is bliss. They teach you things like what you don't know won't hurt you, which doesn't make sense because if I put poison in a cup and you don't know is there and I give it to you to drink, it's going to hurt you. So that's something you don't know that's in the cup, but it's going to hurt you because you don't know it's there. So a lot of times it's too much because it's like to accept truth and deal with truth, you have to shed. You have to get rid of a lot of things that you've been doing that don't make sense and you just did it out of habit. It's kind of like an addiction. You know, you start smoking or drinking or taking some kind of drug, you get hooked on it. And then if someone tries to take you away from it, you're so reliant on it. Like it could be cocaine, crack, whatever. Do you not see how people would literally, they go cold turkey, but before that it's like they want to fight you to get that fix, to hold on to that fix, which is only temporary because the fix or the buzz from the alcohol or whatever only lasts for so long and it's going to wear off. But when you're addicted to something, it's very difficult to let it go. And so that's what I've come across, where you can make something make so much sense, and they will be with you all along the way. And then right at the end, they will say, you need Jesus. You need the blood of Jesus. Or some, like, you're like, we've just walked through and showed you all the mistakes, present the evidence, and you're still going to turn away. We have to realize not everybody's going to be ready at the same time. And all flowers don't blossom at the same time. So you have to let people, if they're stuck on belief, you don't really have to convince. Like, Wu-Sabat doesn't do what religion's done, religions do, where we're not trying to convert people, and it's down to you. Like, you have to make that choice. The decision is yours. You have to either wake up and smell the coffee, as they say, or you stay asleep. Either way, you're the one that's going to face the consequences of your decisions. So yeah, sometimes you have to also be very patient with people. I know with Wu-Sabat, people want to be able to just hurry up, get out of it, let it go, and switch overnight. But you have to remember, think about your journey. How did you come across it, and how long did it take you to come to the realization, or, do you know what I mean, the acceptance of Wu-Sabat? And if it's not for you, it's not for you, unfortunately. But it's a time for those beings that have grown, because you have to be in this cycle. It's the cycle where everyone will have the opportunity, but some people are just not ready yet. Others are like, I've been waiting for this, like, I'm ready. What do I need to do? And they just start doing it, and their ancestors, their DNA explosions just aligns, and they just get on with it. Unfortunately, you also have a lot of talkers, people that gas a lot. They just, it sounds like a club, and they say, yeah, I'm down, I'm this, I'm that. And you just wait and let their actions tell you, because most of the time, if they're not real, they don't last, and they don't stick, and they don't really go through the motions of elevating. All right, what was the second part? Oh yeah, about the
Then my
apple.
other
No, I got
part,
it. Yeah, it was about the apple. Yeah, again, this is what we're saying about fictitious information. They tell you that in the Bible, there's no mention of the word apple. when they're talking about the fruit, it's like people turn it into an apple, just like there's no mention of the word serpent or snake, but they turn it into a snake when the word literally says whisperer. It was a whisperer. But in the Arabic and in the Semitic language, you get the word khanas, which means whisperer. And it was like the person was whispering and talking to someone else. It was a language. Snakes do not talk. I'm just showing you how misinterpretation and distortions have people believing something like the apple. There are different types of apples. In anything in this world, the more you study, you'd be surprised. You have what they call some granny apple. You got different types of apples, red ones, green ones. You can eat as many apples as you like, and you're not going to, like what they said, the eyes were open from eating an apple. It wasn't an apple. It's talking about the poppy seed, which resembles or look like an apple. It's a pomegranate. Like, this is something a master teacher, Partner Bab Yanoon, broke down, and it's like it's hallucinogenic. So it was like, it basically made you hallucinate, and it's like an aphrodisiac as well, and it caused them, Adam and Eve, to partake in what we call the pleasure palace. They had sexual interaction, sexual intercourse when they weren't supposed to, because of the like arousing, and like because it was an aphrodisiac. But what I'm saying is that the apple then becomes a symbol that they tell you it's a bad thing. Then you see apple, as in the manufacturer, they have the symbol of an apple with a bite off of it, and they say that's the forbidden fruit, and they build a whole story around that. And but yeah, it's not what the actual text was saying, you see. So the Isaac Newton thing, that's just talking about gravity and the fact that, you know, trying to prove that you throw something up, it's going to come down. And because he happened to be sitting underneath an apple tree, apparently, and that's like the eureka moment, and he, you know, started to talk about gravity. But, you know, these states, the Matrix, for example, the movie explained it well when, remember when Neo went into the that simulation with Morpheus, and they were fighting for the first time, and he's like, what makes you think this is oxygen you're breathing or something, or that in this world, in this simulation, that the rules are the same in terms of what you're calling gravity and what you're calling, like even when he said he was bleeding, he's like, how do you know that's like real blood? Do you know what I mean? Because if you're able to transcend the three-dimensional world in terms of people, places and things, it's very hard for most people to think outside people, places and things because of the fact that you've been dumbed down to the point where the three-dimensional makes things very simple, like ABC, 1, 2, 3, morning, afternoon, night, breakfast, lunch, supper, black, white, grey. We can go on and on and on to give you these simulations of you being really programmed into thinking that you're only in a three-dimensional world when there are other dimensions that have different rules. The minute you leave one dimension, when I say a dimension, for example, like in the spirit world, they have different rules of engagement. They can't do certain things. Like, you know, entities that are in that environment, there are certain things they can't do. You know, you hear things like salt, they can't go past. There are things in that environment that they're restricted by. So I'm saying that is as a nine ether being that can transcend and come outside of three dimension. You say what is, it will be controversial or maybe not mainstream, but when we say the mental reservoir, the mental deal with your mind, it's not in your head. That's in a dimension that you tap into and you pull from because you're plugged into it, you're connected to it. You see, so the mental realm is in a different dimension or different rules apply, you see. So yeah, I'm just saying like they distort a lot of things in terms of the information that's given to you in basic terms, like the Bible, basic information before leaving earth that you've got to master and then move on to other books. The Bible is only like a small book, but it's just so much confusion that before you even get past the cover, you're confused. So Babel is babbling, is Babel, is dealing with Babylon, is dealing with confusion. So most people get confused in religion. All right, but let's keep moving. Have we got any more? Oh, let me see where that is. I can't see it.
It was Harar.
Oh, there you go, Harar. Tawat Harar. Appreciate love your donation. And yeah, if anybody else would like to help us, you know, we do this from our heart, from our shuk, you know, freely. So if you can help us to keep going, I appreciate love you for that. Hurrah, reading the actual facts, the Akasha records, I found so much evidence that Dr. Malachi Z. York is Thoth and is here to teach the world Wu-Sabat. Yeah, we you know what? We tell people things and
Read the ones below it.
and the one below it.
Keep reading and you'll see.
Okay. Hurrah, what's wrong with you? Hoo-hee. What? Ashe, or what do you mean? I mean, your idol is not Thoth. Okay, reality. This is really, I mean, I can go on, but the reality is we've done a video on this already. And you know what's funny? People who claim, when someone comes and says, I am someone or something, right? Imagine, like, the first thing you have to do is put that person to the test. You don't just say, no, you're not. Because if they ask you who is, then you can't produce. If I say, okay, if he is not, tell me who is. It's like if I say I'm God and you say I'm not God, and I say, okay, produce God, and you've never seen God, ever. You just accept hearsay and beliefs of someone that told someone that told someone that told someone of a story of this being called God that's in heaven sitting on a throne, and he knows everything and he can do everything. He's omnipresent, omnipotent, which means he's the most powerful. He's everywhere at the same time. He knows everything. It sounds nice until we say, all right, let's prove it. Like people be talking for God. Yeah, but God said this and I say, do you speak with God? They say yes. Then I say, all right, if he knows everything, let's ask him some questions. Like ask him right now where he is, exactly the coordinates and how we can get there. Or ask him to come and let's have a big forum for him to present himself. Ask him to get rid of all the sins in the world. Apparently his son came down, his only begotten son came down to sacrifice and die to remove the sins from the world. But the world is still rid with sin. When we start to question your idea of who you, like, first of all, where did you even learn or read about Thoth from? Where does that word come from? Who originated it? You're going to do the research and find out it comes from different cultures, as in the Greeks, like Hermes, Trismegistus, or Thoth, or Tahuti. But which one is first and which one is older? The ancient Egyptian one. So don't say someone is not something. The thing you should do is say, okay, what do I know about this being? What do I know about Thoth, as the Greeks like to call him, right? Okay, he was the person that wrote the most information. He learned and knew things. They say he wrote the emerald tablets. He has all this information. Then we look at the person today that we're saying is the reincarnation of that being, and he's the one with the most information, written the most information about every topic on the planet. Coincidence? So, you know what I'm saying, like, you produce it. Like, people will say things like, take Islam, for example. Oh, no one can produce the Quran. Then somebody writes a holy tablets that is far more informational, has more evidence and facts and everything that millions of people around the world look at as a scripture. So it's easy to make statements, but to put in the work and to show the evidence is completely different. You see, so yeah, he is, and whether you accept it or not, it doesn't matter, because truth is truth. And at the end of the day, we'll see in it at the end of the day, because like I say, who is that being then? You tell us. I've lost the chat. What's going on? Oh, I got it back. Oh, Leo, thank you for your, Leo Wright, thank you for your donation. I appreciate, love you too. You didn't ask a question, but yeah, we in Wu-Sabat, we find it entertaining because, like, no one on the planet has put out as much information, speak as many languages, built as many communities. The list just goes on and on and on. Translated all the scriptures. Like, come on, man. Don't play with us. Let me go back to my questions. Right. Moses, how should we... All the people saying Rahubat, yeah, I just want to get through the questions. Yeah, I see you all, Coco Brown, regulars in the house, Draco, Rahubat, George, Rahubat. All right, Moses, hi, how should we worship and who should we worship? This is what I'm saying. Like, why do you need to worship anyone? We don't worship. If you really want to worship, again, research the word and the etymology of the word worship. Where does it come from? Why? What do you... Okay, what is the purpose of worshiping? If you really think about it. Because people say we need to worship God. And you say, why? Why does God need worship? Oh, because we want to show him that we love him. Or Okay, why does he need love? If he has everything, he doesn't need anything. If he created everything and he has the power to do anything and have everything, what are you going to do for him? So I'm saying that to answer in Wu-Sabat, we do not worship. It actually comes from the word worship, right? Of the beings that had an accident and they were warring. And it was a ship as in a craft, okay? The Meldekians, because the planet Meldic, if you study and read what we teach, Nibiru had an accident, all right, with that planet, and the Meldekians had a war because they thought they were being attacked, and that's where the word worship comes from. They say worship, but yeah, we don't worship. What we do is give respect and reverence and communicate with our ancestors, and we respect nature because we, as animists, we recognize that we are a part of nature. We have rituals that don't involve any blood sacrifices, animal sacrifices, taking a lock of somebody's hair and wishing them badness and all of that. We don't do any of that. We just communicate to our ancestors, and we show gratitude. Yeah, we show appreciation, or we say appreciate love our ancestors, nature, because we know the sun provides for us water, we need it to drink, etc., etc. So I wasn't having a go at you. Sometimes when I speak, I'm just trying to relay information to everyone. So we don't worship. And if you really want to use that term, you really respect yourself and your ancestors, and communicate with them and ask them for guidance and help and so forth. We do that. All right. If you're not in our Telegram group already, right, we post the links in the chat because you can ask questions in the Telegram group. We share things. Oh yeah, which reminds me, man, can you grab my you see it next door, my the bag, or the two scrolls, the mine and the potential. Yeah, tower. Yeah, and I'm gonna share and show you guys two scrolls that, if you're new to Wu-Sabat, or if you've been in Wu-Sabat for a while and haven't had the opportunity to read these two scrolls, they come hand in hand, and I think it will really help you to start with reading these two scrolls, because like, it's just a solid foundation to build on top of, right? Let me keep going whilst I wait for the books. Yeah, here we go. We got them. Nice one. Yeah, tell that. Okay, so the mind scroll, and your potential. Make sure you order these now, because these two books will really help you, and they're available right now from nashat.co.uk. Those books give you, firstly, your mind is your major organs are valuable, so your heart, your lungs, your liver, but your mind is what really processes all the information that you're receiving from affirmation, that governs how you behave and how you act and how you think. And that then means that the way you think results in the actions. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they don't get the basic foundations on lock before they try to, like, they basically have themselves in a loop, asking certain questions because they don't get the basic foundation. Yeah, so I'm saying read those two books, and a lot of these, you know, mind tricks that have your mind trapped will kind of like be gone. All right, let's keep going with the questions. Oh yeah, doesn't Malachi, this is from Draco, doesn't Malachi mean angel? Yes, it does. And the thing as well with words, right? As you know, we're big on language because the master teacher is a linguist and he taught us languages. And anyone who reads the scrolls will see that you get taught the languages as you're reading in the books, right? And it all depends on which origin you're translating the word from. So someone will say, doesn't this mean this? But they're translating from one language, and it does. Somebody else is going to say, doesn't it mean this? And they're right too, but it's from a different source or a different language. So yeah, my angel in terms of Malachi can translate as my angel. Yeah, and that's why he's known as, when you say Malachi, you're saying Malachi Zodok or Melchizedek, or the angel Michael or Murdoch, and depending on which language you're coming from. And then obviously Malaika deals with the Arabic word for the angels, but the Greek will say angelos, but it still means the same thing. All right. Yeah, remember, film yourself if you have other questions we don't get to answer today. I'm going to repeat the competition for those who weren't here at the beginning. So we have the song Freedom for the Master Teacher by Love and Unity. They're going to be officially releasing a video and the actual song soon. And for the competition, if you can film yourself, yeah, try and get a nice clear background as well. And, you know, we don't want to see like things in the background that are not going to be conducive. But the best 3 videos that are submitted to osmvision.wetransfer.com, they're going to get very unique prizes. Certain books that are not available are going to be in that package as well. So all you have to do is film yourself, miming. You know, we're not going to use your audio, but get the family involved. If you've got children, if you want to do it together, if you want to do it as a couple, if you want to have cultural attire on, just, you know, just sing the chorus if you can only sing the chorus. But if you want to sing the whole song in terms of miming it whilst you're filming yourself, submit it, and the best 3 are going to get really exclusive prizes, all right? And also, you can film yourself asking us questions. You know, we do the submit 3 questions that, you know, try and really think about the questions that have been, yeah, bothering you, or like you've been baffled with for years. Like 3 questions. Film them, upload them, and we'll answer them for you. Okay, we have another live caller. Greetings, Rahubat caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? And what's your question, please?
Rahubat. My name is Omar. I'm calling from U.S. Minnesota.
Rahubat.
I can hardly hear you, but I'm gonna try my best to hear you.
Okay. I
So
think.
my question is, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, so I know this planet is kind of held down from the 6 ether forces due to the, other beings coming from star systems or whatnot. My question is, when the Ntharu gets back together and we get each other developed in the right frequency that we're supposed to be in, what is their judgments? The 9 ethers that come from other star systems that trouble this planet. What is their judgments? How are they going to get judged?
The 9 ether or the 6 ether?
The 6 ether.
Yeah. Okay. They already judged. And they tell you this even in the Quran when it
Okay.
says you're going to gather the guilty blue eye, right? Because obviously when you're dealing with that, you're talking about these original Pleiadians that were responsible for the gravitation of the Adamites in their image and their likeness, where they were referred to as the Nordics with, pure blonde hair and blue eyes, which are, when you look at the beings from Aldebaran, the Ashtar Federation and the Pleiadians, that's who you're talking about. And they've already been judged. And sorry, there's a kind of an echo back on your line. But they've been judged by way of their telomeres were designed to fade out after 6,000 years. And that happened in the year 2000 AD. And this is not something that is reversible. It's actually, there's nothing that can be done about it because it's extinction for that specific species of Adamites. And so just like when the polar bears or any other species gets to a point where they cannot carry on, they fade away. And this is why they have a lot of like the fertility rate, the low sperm count. And this is something you can do your research on to find out, where they're telling you like there's no way, like when you've dropped to that level of, you know, fertility in terms of the rate, you're not able to reproduce anymore, and that will only mean that you will fade away. So they're already been judged in that instance. But six ether forces in general have a lot of people under the spell of Kingu or Leviathan. So it's not just them, it's anyone who is not elevating that has been trapped. It's going to also get caught up in the many things that are designed to remove them. And we've seen that with Kobad, which, you know, people know as COVID, and the wars and the famine and the tornadoes, the earthquakes, the fires, all these things that are taking place right now on the planet are actually the people or beings that are caught up in these things are getting eliminated. And unfortunately is referred to as the great and dreadful day of the Lord, meaning that, you know what I mean, that if you're not rising in consciousness and not rising in your vibration and not in tune with nature, you're going to get caught up, and you need to know where to be and how to avoid these things. And that's why the warner's here with healing in his wings, to actually prepare those who are going to listen. It says in the books of Revelations, which most people think about as the prophetic scripture for this day and time, it says, let those who have an inner ear, let them listen. You know, if you don't listen, it's like the Noah story, when he was saying to people, this is coming, this is going to happen, get yourself prepared. And those who just thought it was a joke obviously got caught, and you know, according to the story, got flooded. Yeah, so it's already happening, and 9 ethers already on the rise in terms of the sun cycle that's here and the
Right, of
consciousness.
course.
Yeah.
So Tua. But Zamal, what about the, you know how the Pleiadians, they're in another star system where they get judged like in their home? Is it like a universal judgment, or it's just the
Yeah.
ones in this planetary system?
Good question. So what normally happens is that there's a council that meets up, and in the Akasha records, I think somebody mentioned it before, that when you're dealing with like extinction or the elimination of a planet or even a galaxy, or you know, these different beings that represent the different galaxies come together in the Galactic Federation, and they discuss things and they come to a consensus and decide the fate of a planet. And there's a movie, I think it's When It All Ends. I can't remember. There's a movie that actually depicts this, where, so yeah, when you're judged, and what happens is that some of these beings, like the reptilians, they run away. Like even like, for example, the story of Alalu and Anu, when he was judged because he wanted to take over the throne, and he was judged to be unalived. And what he did is he ran away, and he ran
I
to,
went to Mars.
right, went to Mars, and then he came here,
Right.
right. And it's the same with some of these beings. They run away, or like it's like, imagine somebody is guilty of a crime and they've been sentenced to be, you know, jailed, and they find a way to escape and run away. And so some of them run from galaxy to galaxy, from planet to planet. But then, just like how you may send, you know, the law enforcement to go and find them, they show you this in things like Men in Black, the movie, where you have extraterrestrials that they come here and they camouflage and they hide and they go to different places, and you know, the Men in Black, they go and find them and then, you know, try to take them back or put them in these prisons. So yes, you're right that it's throughout where they are told, because they were responsible for creating the Adamites, and they've been warned that they can't do that, you know, anymore. So yeah, it happens on a galactical level where these decisions are made by the councils, and then there are different councils all the way to the Council of Nine, which is dealing with the overseers or the Ntharu, who basically make the final judgment.
Okay, all right, for sure. And another thing, how are they? You know, they're basically in the sixth ether vibration. How are they still advanced though? You know, they're acting like sixth ether, but how are they more advanced than us? They're able to,
because
go
they
in and out of places.
yeah, because you're not utilizing your power. You don't know how to because you've been dumbed down. It's like, think about this, right? Let's say
Uh-huh.
you go and work for someone, a company, but
Right.
the person that is your manager or the CEO maybe, let's say, had only a secondary level education, but they're in a
Okay.
position of management that they dictate what you do. Even though you're far more intelligent, you might have a PhD, but because you've
Uh-huh.
subjugated yourself to that power structure, then you're gonna, because of a paycheck or because of, you need to feed your family or whatever, they're gonna make decisions and you're thinking that doesn't even make sense, but you just go along and say yes boss to what they say. Six ether
Yeah.
forces have basically taken over this planet. When you're saying plan ET, you're saying planet. And so this is why nine ether forces have to rise up. It's not just nine, but you're talking about seven, eight, and nine that are supposed to be able to like be above six ether. And most of the time, you're being controlled by five ether beings in terms of the males of the Adamites that are running the world and running and in power, in positions of power that can push button to nuclear weapons. You see, so
Okay.
it's down to us as those beings that are allowing ourselves to basically, it's like, imagine you're a smart person. Like, I know people that are scientists. I'm talking about neuroscientists, doctors, right? That are religious.
Yeah.
And you say, how can you be a scientist and know all the facts about actual facts, but still go
Right. Right.
and go down to the level of belief in something that doesn't make sense? Science, and
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense. So you can't be so smart. Like, they tell you that Einstein was very smart, high IQ, etc. But he didn't know that smoking was gonna kill him and get lung cancer. And you see what I mean? It's like you can't have this thing where you have science and then fiction. That's what you're literally saying when you're a scientist and then you believe religion that's based on belief. And you say science
Hmm.
fiction. How can science be fiction? It's
Yeah.
contradicts
Right.
it contradicts each other, and you say science fiction, and people just accept it like, okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. So yeah, we have to raise ourselves above six ether, not to be controlled by six ether.
Sure. One last question, man, and I'm gonna let you be, brother.
Go ahead.
I read a Patarak. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was called The Way,
Yeah.
where Panan Yanoon, Dr. Malachi Z. York was talking about. He was for all foods. The seafood is the best. He knows because he was in the waters for so many years. And I'm could you make me understand that, brother? Because I know, and as us Sabians, we try to avoid anything that has a heart or eyes. So
Right.
when he says seafood is the best, could you make me understand on that?
Tua, I mean, it depends on which books you read as well, because he updates information all the time, and with updates as well that clarify a lot of information. And being a
Okay.
loving, caring being, what he does
Right.
sometimes is that, as you would with your child, if you're too strict or say something and they rebel, then you might say, okay, you can have a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so when you read the part of that called Diagnosis of the Races, right?
Okay.
That's the one that talks about diets, and when you say you do a diagnosis, it's like you're basically examining races and what they eat. And in that part of that, he explains when you look at the elders of any race and you see what they suffer with, as in the types of illnesses they have, and then look at what they ate, because really what you eat all your life is going to be what results in you when you're elder. And you look at, say, the Ntharu race and look at what the elders suffer from. A lot of that is normally high blood pressure, arthritis, and diabetes, obesity, and then you look at other races and see what they suffer with. So he says that you have two types of diets. There's the seafood diet and there's the land food diet. And it stands to reason that if you came from the seas, you would have been eating to survive in the sea. So seafood, not seafood as in S-E-E, you see food and you eat it, but S-E-A, seafood, right? So he says that some beings are seafood, their diet should be predominantly of seafood, and others are going to be of land, or the food from the land. But he also says that you have a vegan diet. If you're still consuming flesh, you have to wean yourself off, and he was like, don't eat anything with parents. And people complained, so he was like, all right, you guys can have white meat, which is it's better than red meat, and it's a way to wean yourself off of meat. So you might have turkey and chicken, and then you work your way to maybe being a vegetarian, where you don't eat any more flesh, but you might still consume some animal products, like cheese and milk and stuff, which again is not the best, but it's a step towards being a vegan, where, with a vegan, you don't consume any animal or the animal byproducts. And so people are at different levels, and based on, what you've been doing for a long time, it may be difficult for you to just stop. So you have to literally wean yourself off, rather than, it's like going cold turkey, as I was explaining before, if you're addicted to heroin or something. So yeah, it's about
All
you
right.
weaning yourself off and knowing what is best for you. However, the most up to date was don't eat anything with parents. And when you say that, people say, but plants have parents. And we're like, okay, yes, but a plant is designed for you to consume. It's what was designed for you to eat. And even in Genesis, when people first come across that word meat, it literally tells you that vegetation and herbs have been produced for you as meat. Not that you should eat meat, you see. So, but yeah, everyone, it doesn't really, like I said, you either follow it to the latter in terms of, just eating veg and herbs, and or you wean yourself off from seafood to completely not eating anything with parents and blood. I hope that's helped. But yeah, read the 33 commandments of the Sabian if you haven't read that already. That gives you more clarity. Torah? Okay, I think he's gone. Okay, let's go back to the questions in the chat and see what else we have.
I said no more calls. Just chat for 30 minutes.
Okay. So, well, you're not going to let them through? Okay, yeah, we're going to focus on the chat because we have a lot of questions in the chat that we want to get through. All right, so let's see. This is 1 Consu 9. It seems none of you even know what this term Wu-Sabat means, or any verification of its language definition. Nothing. That's not a question, but of course that will be the case, because if it's ours, we're going to be the only ones who know the true meaning of it. And until we share it and tell other people what it means, they're not going to know. So when people say we don't know, the master teacher is the one that brought it to the world. So of course he knows, and he's given us many parts of it, because it's just a part of a bigger picture. So if you read the Amun Institute, he goes in where he explains about Asanupu, Nabanupu, and Wu-nuwapu. And says that's dealing with Wu-Sabat. Of course, you got to break down the words Wu and Sabat. Sabat deals with literally the stargates, or people say the stars, dealing with Sabatat or Saba'ah, or dealing with Sa'at. Okay, so it's really dealing with us coming from the stars, but there's a lot more to it. But I'm gonna just go through these questions quickly. I know it wasn't a question, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if it's a conversation or if he's speaking, if you're Sabian or Sabian, or if you're not. But it's like, how can someone who doesn't know the language or the word or its origin tell you don't know what it means when you originated it? All right. And when you say verification of its language, which language are we talking about? Because the language is Misbatia, but it's known by many cultures in different forms and names, like Sabaic, dealing with Nuapik, dealing with Napata, Moro, dealing with, there's different scripts, like what people call the cuneiform or the hieroglyphics. So when you say which language, we have to say, what language are we talking about and what's the origin of that language? And then you look at the scripts, look at other languages or dialects that have come out of it, you find words in it. How do you make up something that you can go and find and there's evidence? There's a whole tablet that we've got in the language book that's been found and uncovered, and you see the script in there. All right, so yeah, that's just dealing with the language. Solomon, pressure, temperature creates life. Sun, water, and soil create life. That's right. That's absolutely right. Hence, we use the word tamare. Ta, dealing with the earth. Pata. Mu, deals with the water. And Ra, or Re, deals with the sun. These are the three elements that produce moisture, that produce, life. So you're right. That's why we had, the three position representing the sun, the water, as in Nun, Atom, Amun, the Nun, the waters. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I'm just going to skip the chapter and go to the question. Some people are funny, man. Greetings to one and all. Enough energy to one and all. Okay, questions. I don't see any question. Yeah, thank you, Solomon. I wish people would stop worrying about Dr. York and worry about what Dr. York is warning us about. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, he's teaching you all this science and what he's warning you and what's coming, and has been doing so for over 50 years. And everything he says is documented, has actually come to pass. But people still want to, obviously we are concerned about his well-being and want him out and free because he's unjustly incarcerated. But yeah, deal with the information, as Solomon is saying. Deal with the warnings and the teachings of what he's saying. And you'll find that it all reasons out. I don't see any questions. Their conversation. Okay, Yellow Woman. How are you? I've asked once, but I need to know again. Can you translate your books in French so I can order some of them and have them delivered in France? How can I learn more about Wu-Sabat otherwise? This just shows you the amount of work that needs to be done. Before Dr. York was wrongfully incarcerated, this was a project he was working on. He was translating books into many languages, including Spanish, and so that is work that needs to be done in terms of people that can translate. You got to just work with us. We'll put you in touch with the center and the office. See, anything somebody says, why don't we have this? Like, why don't we have, a Wu-Sabat community in our area? Or why don't we have a temple or a store? Or why don't we have the books in the language? that shows you that work needs to be done, and why we need help and people to actually help to get Wu-Sabat out to the world in terms of this right knowledge and right wisdom. But that's something that's being worked on, and as soon as it's available, or I'm sure there probably are some translated books into other languages, but you might be able to help. And when people say that, it's normally a sign for you to be that seed that starts that community, get together study groups, or start to connect with the center to see how you can help and do the work that needs to be done. All right. So yeah, stay. That's Yellow Woman. If you're in our Telegram group, contact us and we can definitely help you with that. Okay, sorry, advert. Okay, so is there a question? Is there a scroll that mentions? This is Leo, right? Is there a scroll that mentions what we can eat? There isn't a specific scroll that mentions what you can eat, because most people are not disciplined enough to actually follow the instructions of what to eat. The master teacher has written books like Purity and Neatness, Healthy Living. I think the full title is Healthy Living, Purity and Neatness. But since then, he has given us many guidelines in terms of what to eat and what not to eat. In our documentary, we actually covered a wide section of it on what to eat. We even went out shopping, bought the ingredients, prepared, different meals that you can eat. Catch the Wu-Sabat documentary if you haven't seen that. There's a lot of information there regarding what you should eat. You should avoid eating things that are processed. Most things that are white are processed, as in white sugar, white flour, white bread, white rice, etc. Right? There are alternatives that you can use. We have many nutritionists in the organization that can help you with that. Men eat loads of red things, and the master teacher told us about eating red things like beetroot years ago, and now everyone's talking about nitric oxide, which is predominantly made from beetroot. So the red things like red tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, for the females, a lot of the green stuff, and it goes into a lot of detail about how it harmonizes with the female's menstrual cycle, and why the vegetation deals with healthy living, etc. So go and check out the Wu-Sabat documentary, and we go into that, and we give you a number of meal preps that you can do and use as well. Okay, but yeah, the diet specific book does not exist. Okay, let's go back to where I was. It's funny when people say things like Wu-Sabat is not something that exists, and then we got millions of people around the world saying they're into Wu-Sabat. Make it make sense, bro. That's all right. Life is a blessing. Much a shook to you. Okay, are you really live, or is this a pre-recording? How are you gonna know? We're live. What's the time now? 21:08. If that helps to tell you we're live, that's in the UK actually, GMT. All right. Okay, let's keep going. Solomon, you're doing a great job debunking some of that stuff. Okay, let's keep going. I had to cut off my dad's family because they trust Jesus as God on me. Not cause the world is in sin and very accepted due to Romans. I know what you mean. Sometimes you have to love people from a distance, but cutting them off you know, you got to try and convert, not convert in a sense of what I mean by the master teacher is so profound. Some of the things he says, like he said, it's not about who you hurt, but it's about who you don't hurt. And that takes a while for you to kind of like process it. I was like, that means that you should do your best to keep people close and deal with love and unity, and you know what I mean, just let people be if they're not resonating with it. We don't want divisions, we don't want any fights, and you know, you just live Wu-Sabat, and by way of your example, you know, obviously they're gonna be haters. Make your haters your motivators. Like, they're gonna be people, you can't please everyone. You just gotta do your best and live Wu-Sabat to the best of your ability, and you will see the transformation. And by that example, that's how people will look at you and see the transformation. And you know, but we're not here to like badger people and try and put people down. We just give you the facts. The truth can be a bit hard for some people to swallow, but if they say they want the truth, how can they not then deal with the truth? Unless they don't really want it, you see? And people are going to say the truth is one truth to one person, and no, there's only one truth. Truth is truth. And if it's true, we agree and we say it's the truth. It's the truth. It's true. You know, we will not say to someone who says something that is true, regardless of their race, complexion, walk of life. If they say something that is true, because we've established it's truth, we say that's true. But is it all the way truth? Because when you go to court, they tell you what? To swear on some religious book, or to say you're going to tell the truth. But they don't stop there. They say to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. See, so they even get you in a point where you can't just tell a bit of truth and then the rest of it is a lie, because that's not true. Like, anyone can mix a bit of truth with falseness and incorrect information or wrong information or untrue information. But Wu-Sabat deals with the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, truth is truth, and truth will definitely make you free. Okay, let's keep going. Questions. Another question. Do you think, this is from Yellow Woman again, do you think, you're not married to Yellow Man by any chance, are you? I'm joking. Another question. Do you think the world as we know is going to end, and when? And can you elaborate about the notion that some beings, humans only, are going to be saved? Yeah, again, this is something we've covered. I'm just going back because I missed something. Atmos, you're funny, but I'm not gonna give you too much airplay because you're becoming a bit of a distraction, to be honest. But when you say Black history, Black and his story doesn't make sense, because Black people haven't told their own story. When you're saying history, it's his story, okay? But I'm not gonna, like I said, dwell on that. I think Solomon and other brothers are able to deal with that. The question about, right, when we say the world, that's a big sentence, like little words like if, we, us, have a big and profound meaning. World, like the world to someone might just be the building they're in or the town they're in, right? You can go back and go the country they're in, the continent they're in, the planet they're in. But then when you keep going to the cosmos, it's like, what do you consider the world? Because your world can end, but it doesn't mean the whole planet's world that's ended. You know, if there's a tsunami or earthquake or tornado or some fires in what you call your world, the world ends for you, but not necessarily for everybody else. So when we're saying that, do we think that the world is going to end? The world as you know it, certain aspects of what you're calling the world are going to end. And not for everyone, for some people. This is why we talk about ascending and descending souls, raising your vibration, the Christ consciousness. All these terms are fancy words for talking about this new sun cycle, the sun cycle that's bringing about this change where it's extinction time for some people. If they do not change their ways, elevate, transform from being so low vibrational and just dealing with nonsense, if I can call it that, right? To elevate to being a nine mind or a being that is conscious and trying to elevate, is mindful, is caring, is loving in the sense of unconditional love, working with nature. All these things are going to have an impact on whether or not you make it. And the warner, the being that's here to teach you and show you how to survive this, like he says, gods will live, mortals will die. All right. And when you say some beings, humans only, are going to be saved, you're saving yourself by the application of Wu-Sabat. And someone might say, oh, I'm going to be saved by Jesus. But if you really think about it logically, do you even know if that person exists? Because they've been telling you lies about, not just him, I'm just using that as an example, but who's going to save you and why and how and when, and there's all the questions. Like in Wu-Sabat, you've got to deal with when, where, what, how. What have I left out? You ask all those questions, you get to the bottom of it. You get to the actual truth and facts. Okay. So yeah, the world will end for some people, and some people will make it, some won't. And this cycle, 6 ether, is going to not make it. It's going to completely be eradicated, but it's not overnight. It's going to take time as 9 ether consumes all the lower ethers, especially 6. Okay, Solomon's going to make it to New York to visit. Good. I have a 10-year-old that I'm trying to expose the truth to that I haven't been able to see in 8 years. Excellent. Yeah, it starts with the children. Children are the future. Okay, Virgin Island, Rahubat Musa, Motra Shuk and Peace. Free Dr. Malachi Zio. Wu-Sabat leads the way. Truth and facts. Let's keep teaching. 100%. Do it again. Free Dr. York. And we will be free as well. Osarapis. Grand Rising. Malachi Z. York in 1979, did he translate the book of Revelations that we are using today? Thank you, from Sydney, Australia. Yeah, he did translate it. He had many translations, and yeah, the little tiny ones, the little scrolls. Then he did this whole big thick hardcover translation, plus the blue ones that he was going chapter by chapter and translated all of them. So yes, but then the Holy Tablets came and took it even further. The Black Book. Yeah, so what is the way of fasting in the Wu-Sabat culture? Okay, again, we've covered this in many of the scrolls. There are many ways and methods of fasting. And another thing I will say to people, come inside, come and be a part of the family, so that you're not just doing what people do, which is they listen to our videos, they study, they stay out there and they benefit from it, which is great. But they don't give back and they don't want to be a part of the family, and we share information freely. But in our culture, you can fast the first 3 days of the month. You can fast on the day of your birth, and you can also fast during the solstices, the winter and the summer. And we do many rituals also that go hand in hand with the fasting. You know, there's different types of fasting. You can have, we always drink water because water helps with the cleansing, and it also depends on the purpose of the fast and what you're trying to achieve. You know, there's also just liquid fasting, which is, you know, fruit fasting, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve, all right? But yeah, that's just a taste, but we do have other ways and methods of fasting. We don't fast to the extreme where you're not drinking water for a long time, and you can get a lot of health issues from fasting the wrong way or doing things that are not medically sound or healthy. But of course, we don't give medical advice, so we just share the knowledge of what we know that works for us. The sun doesn't rise or set for you. Yeah, but you know, I know what you mean. It's just a guideline. But you have to also know about your circadian rhythm and how your body works with the intake, the assimilation, the elimination, and it's all about knowing the science of what you're doing, not just doing things for the sake of it. Right, we've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to run through the rest of these questions. Is there a scroll that mentioned what we can eat? I covered that already. Do you think young Pharaoh was a CIA agent? You know, what we do know in terms of, I'm not going to comment on anyone's specific situation because anything can transpire and happen, but we do know that our ancestors, 6 ether forces, in terms of you can be attacked by 6 ether forces if you're not aligned with truth, Wu-Sabat, our ancestors, and it's kind of sad to see what happened, but honestly, it's kind of sad to say this, but I literally predicted that. Yeah, because he actually, when it, like a lot of people, they come on the scene, very knowledgeable, very astute student, but what you don't do is let your ego get the better of you. And this is what happens with a lot of teachers, and they're not humble enough to recognize the source of the information that they teach, the master teacher, Partner Bab Yanoon, and they let their ego run away with them. And I remember one time when he was actually quite disrespectful to the master teacher, and that was at that point where I was like, you know what, that was not necessary. You don't need to put others down or disrespect your elders for clout or for, do you know what I mean? Like, up until that point, you know, the same with other teachers. They, you know, they break down information, and, you know, they go in the so-called conscious community and they become the stars, but they forget themselves, and they're not humble enough to recognize, to give respect where respect is due. And I'm just saying that because you're asking me specifically about this person, that you see them come, you see the rise, you see the fall, and over time you see that if you don't pay homage and respect and maintain your humility and give respect and reverence to those that paved the way before you, unfortunately 6 ether forces will get you. You know, that's what they do. They allow you to kind of like, if you're not keeping things in check, you know. So unfortunately, I'm not going to comment on whether it was a CIA agent or any of that, but I just saw a brilliant young brother who could have really, you know what I mean, he could have done with being groomed properly I'm not going to mention others as well. There are other people. We've seen it happen to many people. But unless you ask me specifically about someone, I won't comment on it. Right, Christ Tahuti. What's the difference between Israelites and Nubians? They try to confuse us on who's God's chosen people. Yeah, that's all religion. Again, this is all about like setting people to divide and be against each other, competitions and all of that. Because again, these are just titles and names that people have picked up, and none of them existed, before Wu-Sabat. And the word Nubians actually comes from newborns, which ties into Nuwapian. And yeah, it's just divisions and religion, because you're saying God's chosen people. Like, that in itself is division, and it's dealing with we're better than you. And that's what, if you look at religion, you have so many denominations of so-called Israelites or Hebrews or Jews. And you go to Christianity, it's the same thing. You have so many denominations. You go to Islam, it's the same thing. But all of them come from Abrahamic religion, and they all tie into the Anunnakis, and it's like they fight amongst each other, and it's all about separatism, and we don't deal with that. Wu-Sabat deals with unity, love and unity. That's what we're about, and we know that religion causes the most problems on the planet in terms of wars. Look at it, just go on the news today. People are fighting over land, fighting over identity, fighting over things that separate people as opposed to bringing them together. Was Christ really born September the 11th? Was he even born? So many people will tell you different dates, but there's no such person called Christ. You can go and read that in the Bible. It tells you in the books of Acts, we have found a Messiah who is being interpreted the Christ or Christ. So you have to find out who the Messiah or Messiah, what are we talking about when we say Messiah, the anointed, which one? There are different Messiahs that have been anointed. So, and it was really born on June, if you really want to go there, according to the evidence. All right. And we've got books that go into that, but as I said, this is quick fire, so I'm not going to be able to spend too much time on that. But you just have to think about how they've woven that story into Christmas, and so they can sell you, all kinds of products. Christ Tahuti again. Is the story of Christ misinterpreted into being fully peaceful? I think on that third, he turned into a vampire alien. That's why we have the blood ritual. This is what we're saying, that it's these beings that have given you that story, that have made it into its extraterrestrials and vampirism, as you say, and reptilians that eat flesh and drink blood. Because you literally go to church and they tell you this is the body of Christ that you're eating. Why would you want to eat the body of Christ? And this is the blood of Christ that you're drinking. We can go into that. We've done a whole video on that. But yeah, you're right. That's what's happened. They've flip mode the script on you. Makeda Paul, greetings. Does the master teacher speak on the origins of divine 9 black Greek organizations? Like how and why they were created, and are they attached to the 12 elite families of the world? Yeah, he does speak on it. The Luciferian Conspiracy. That is a book that you're going to read and get that information that you're asking. But yeah, there's a lot of tricknology. That's trick knowledge, that things are being made to seem agreeable when they're actually disagreeable. But yeah, so they will use certain terms and names and to trick you. But Leviathan 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the Luciferian Conspiracy will go into that. We only have 2 minutes left, so unfortunately I'm trying to get through the last few questions. I think the magic trick is Tahuti Oh, come on. I think the magic trick is Tahuti never died. He meditated and ascended. We have the actual facts. It's not about what I think and what you think and my opinion. It's like the actual facts are there. With right, let's keep going. So, do you think Elon Musk is going to expose that America is committed to? He said Memphis, Tennessee has a significant. I mean, it's not Elon Musk that's going to expose it. We've already done that. Look at the dollar bill. Everything on the dollar bill is all about Egypt. But yeah, again, we've covered that question before. We don't wait on all these guys like to tell us what we already know. We know our story. I recently read The Man from Planet Risk. Can you elaborate about time traveling? I will have to read it over and again. Yeah, I mean, they've been telling you about time traveling for a long time in terms of, when you say elaborate, there are machines in the book of Man from Planet Risk. It talks about the time machine, and there have been a million movies trying to, explain that. But again, we've run out of time. But read the Man from Planet Risk book again, and you can also get that from us. Our story is a mystery. I recently read the Man. Okay, that's the one I just covered. Mum's the word, indeed. Who's that from? Jason Mason. Mum is truly the word. All right. Freedom. King Thai 27. So Ken, brother, what is the mothership they are talking about that's supposed to be here in September? I don't know who the they are talking about. Who's the they? But we know about the mothership. People are talking about Nibiru. There are many, many ships. But we can't go into that right now. We've come to the end. Shout out to Nupu archive page. Okay, cool. Yeah, everything Wu-Sabat that is aligned with what we teach, support it. Support OSM Vision. Support us with all the projects that we're doing. Join the Telegram group. Support the 100 project. If you don't know about that, then hit us up and we will basically give you all the info. All right. So until next week, next time, it's always a pleasure to come before you to share the knowledge that has been bestowed upon us by Partner Bab Yanoon, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. Let's do what we have to do to free him, and you will be taken to a much higher level based on what he's going to take us to. So, Ashok Wu-Wadu.